Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 13th meeting of the Abington Finance Committee, May 13th, 2020. We are meeting once again on Zoom during the COVID-19 extreme measures. Tonight we have a similar agenda to some of our last meetings. We do have one welcome item, welcoming our new acting town manager, who is joining us here, is already here on the Zoom with us. We have a couple of other guests with us tonight. We have our town accountant, Sue Moquin, and we have our town moderator, Sean Riley, who's going to provide us an update on where we're at with trying to schedule town meeting and trying to shape up the warrant depending on the way things schedule out with town meeting given the current circumstances. We'll do a quick review of the budget and where we're at with things and potentially run through some of the warrant articles. We'll have some discussion on the warrant articles. So leading off, our first agenda item is to welcome our new town manager, Scott. Scott, will you pronounce your last name for us just so I don't screw it up?
Lambiase.
Lambiase. Scott Lambiase, welcome very much.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here with us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be aboard.
I'm not sure if you wanted to take a minute to kind of introduce yourself to the members of the committee. I know you and I talked last week, but I think a lot of them would like to hear from you just briefly, if you don't mind.
Sure. You know, as you're all aware, I came from 15 years in the town of Duxbury. You know, I was in charge of the procurement for the town while I was over there. I was in charge of project management, all sorts of special projects, any construction projects. We took care of all licensing in my department. Any sort of permitting would come through my department, stickers, anything like that. Pretty much dealt with the most committees, Affordable Housing Trust Committee. We built a lot of affordable housing for the town. Took care of surplus inventory for the town, surplus land for the town, surplus material for the town, different items like that. But yeah, there was quite a few things in the town of Whitman where I live. I was on the Board of Selectmen for 7 years, jumped off of that. Didn't feel as though I was punished enough, so I got on the Abington Finance Committee, and I've been on that committee for the past year. So that's where I think I was last night.
So you're quite familiar with where we're at right now.
Yeah, and you know what? Everybody's in the same boat as where we're at, and whether, like I said, Whitman doing the same thing. Where Duxbury, they were getting started as I left, but yeah, everybody's sort of re-looking at their budgets and you know, they're all on their heels trying to figure out what the future is going to be, and everybody's trying to get a town meeting in.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions or welcoming comments for Scott?
Oh, welcome, Scott. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thank you.
Welcome, Scott. It's good to see you again.
Yes, nice to see you again. Thank you.
All right. Well, again, thank you for introducing yourself. Thank you for joining us here tonight. Sort of side note on the agenda, I'm going to now turn over to Sean Riley for a quick update on where we're at with town meeting and trying to get that scheduled.
Thanks, Matt. I'm going to try not to take up too much of your time, but I want to just remind people, viewers at home, that all of the members of the Finance Committee are volunteers. They're all residents of the town. And so I want to extend my thanks to all the hours and hours and hours that you guys put into this. And I think taping all of your meetings is a great benefit to the residents of the town, because I firmly believe that most of the people who go to town meeting have been watching your meetings, those in the meetings of the selectmen. So they come in to the town meeting with a working knowledge of a lot of the articles and a lot of the issues. So that's very helpful. We can kind of get right to the meat of any discussion. But I just wanted to update you guys. As you know, the Board of Selectmen had postponed the town meeting till Monday, June 22nd, with town elections to be held on Tuesday, June 23rd. That is currently what we're going with. The town meeting will be at the Abington High School auditorium like it always has been, well, since we've had the new school. The elections on the 23rd will be at the Emerald Hall on Central Street. And the selectmen and town clerk will be sending out more details about that soon. But for town meeting, Mr. Lambiase and I and the town clerk and Sue Moquin, our town accountant, and the custodial director and a few others met at the auditorium the other day just to kind of scope out how we might have a meeting there. One of our biggest issues is Abington has a quorum requirement of 150 people. And we're in a pandemic right now where they're not encouraging large groups. Although the governor's order to not allow large groups doesn't actually apply to a town meeting. Town meetings are exempt because it's a municipal legislative body. That being said, even though it might be legal for us to have a meeting, I'm not sure it's wise or that we would expect that more than 150 people would want to show up and sit in the auditorium that close together. So what we looked at was, there's two things that are up in the air. The biggest one is there's pending legislation at the State House right now to allow towns to temporarily reduce the quorum during the pandemic, as long as there's a public health emergency declared by the governor, so that towns that have high quorums, 100 or 150, anything really, can reduce it to as low as 10%. So that we theoretically, the selectmen would take the vote and the moderator has to sign off on it. They could declare a quorum temporarily of 15 or 20 or 50 people. That doesn't set a limit to how many people can come. We could still get 100 people or 150 people. But what it does do is allow us to start promptly on time, because one of our biggest concerns is trying to make this meeting as efficient as possible so that people are not lingering or in the room for any longer period than is necessary. And part of that legislation says that if the quorum is reduced on a temporary basis, that the town meeting should only be based on basically budget-related articles or federally mandated articles. And we do have one of those that's pending. Anything that can be pushed off to a later fall town meeting or special town meeting should be done. And that'll be a decision of the selectmen as to what articles might be pushed back. So our goal is to do two things. If we do move forward with the June 22nd town meeting, and hopefully there is a reduced quorum, that would allow us to have social distancing. We mapped out the seating in the auditorium, and we're going to try to keep 3 vacant seats between each person. And we're going to try to have 2 blank rows between each row so that people are spread out. We did discuss perhaps husband and wives, people that live together could sit together, but everyone else we're going to try to ask to sit away from each other at least a minimum of 6 feet, because as you probably all know, it's and Katie, you're well aware of this, it's the direct exposure is a threat, but multiply that by the time of the exposure. So if you walk by someone who might be carrying the virus, that's a risk. But if you actually sit next to them or talk with them for 5, 10, 15, half an hour, that becomes a greater risk. Thus, we're going to try to separate people and have an efficient and a quick meeting as quickly as possible. So I will also be talking with the selectmen and with the town manager about kind of reorganizing the warrant to put some of the kind of annual warrant articles that are usually non-debatable, kind of routine articles, put those together. We've done it in the past. We call it a consent agenda, where I can say that, for example, Articles 6 through 12 will now be voted with 1 vote. Unless there's any objection, we'll take 1 vote and get these 6 articles out of the way. So we're going to try to organize that type of stuff to try to make this as efficient as possible. I know you guys have a lot of work, so the numbers or the order of the articles might change, but for your review tonight, just keep doing what you're doing with the numbering system that they have. If the selectmen change it, we'll update you guys, and we'll get everything printed. And our number one concern is going to be safety of the voters and safety of the people that are working and volunteering at the town meeting. Even if the warrant does get sent out by the selectmen as planned, the law also gives the moderator and the town board of selectmen the ability to postpone the town meeting again if there was some sort of issue that was arising that caused us a greater and that if we think we should move it, we'll move it. If the quorum doesn't get reduced by legislation, that's a whole different can of worms, and Mr. Lambiase and the Board of Selectmen and I will be talking more about what to do if we're required to have a 150 plus meeting. Some towns are looking at having outdoor town meetings, which would require a Saturday or a Sunday. Some towns are using their auditorium, their gym, obviously hooked up, connected together. So there's a lot of moving parts right now. Can't give any firm answers. The selectmen will make the final call as to when and where, and then we will use that information and try to make it as safe as possible. But just wanted to give you guys that status update. And of course, we'll keep you updated as every week goes by. I think we'll have a little bit more information to work with.
I just have a couple of questions. Will the doors to the auditorium be kept open for airflow? Are residents going to be required to wear masks even though we'll have the social distancing? And is there a plan to have a HEPA filter to have negative air pressure in the room during and after the meeting to clear the air? Because as we know, the coronavirus stays in the air for 2 hours after somebody sneezes or coughs or exposes in the air.
Yes, and Marty, I forgot to add, Marty Golightly, for our health agent, was there at our meeting. Yes, first thing, easiest one is, yes, masks will be required by everyone in attendance. And if you don't have a mask, we'll give you a mask. We did talk about airflow, and we're looking more into airflow about, in fact, even just the voter check-in process. We want to, doors open just so you don't even have to touch the door, but also to have some fresh air coming in and out. The HEPA filters, I'm not aware of that. I did talk to the custodial staff, and I understand the fire department and the school department have, and I don't know what the machine's called, but it's basically a decontaminant unit that they can go in, and they're going to clean the auditorium before we are there, and they're going to clean it after we are there. My goal, frankly, hopefully, is to have a town meeting that goes no more than a half an hour or so. I can't stop people from talking. I can try to encourage people to be succinct, but lowering that quorum allows us to get going, and having a nice shortened, abbreviated warrant that's in good order will help us to move along. I'll find out more about that, Katie, and if you want to kind of help us, give me some more feedback offline later.
Sure.
Looking for answers. Every town all the moderators in town meetings are all trying to deal with their size, their location, and what to do. Because a lot of them are in older schools with bad circulation. We're in a brand new school, so that might help.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Based on the last few years, I would say as long as we don't have articles about either dog parks or marijuana, we should be fine for the length of the town meeting.
Yeah, as I said, the legislation, if they enact the temporary lower quorum legislation, I would assume the selectmen would take such action as moving all the zoning articles off this warrant. I'm not sure which other ones they would move off. I've just got another copy of it, an updated copy today. We'll try to get as much done as we can, because we do want to set the budget and put some projects, have some projects ready to go. But I will keep you guys updated, and if you guys have any concerns, please let me know. We actually have a seating plan where we're going to not have you guys, obviously, all 9 of you sitting at one table. We're going to spread you all out, and the selectmen will be spread out in addition to anyone in the audience.
Would you screen townspeople at the door to make sure that they don't have a fever?
That's what I'm talking more with Marty about. I'm in favor of doing everything, and I'm of the opinion, just what I've read, we have to assume that I have the virus and you all have the virus and everybody in the building has the virus and doesn't know it. Mm-hmm. So we all have to protect each other and do this as a community. And if we all assume the worst, I think we can get it done the best.
Mm-hmm.
Who else has questions for Sean?
Sean's living a bigger hell than I am. I'm not sure that he'll want to.
All right.
I think there are a lot of different people living different variations of hell right now.
Yeah, there's people going through a lot of tough times. There's a lot of great people in this town that are reaching out and helping out, and we appreciate it. Yep. We can do it. It takes a village, but stay tuned. We'll keep you updated. We got a great team of people up at the town hall that are working together to try to get this ready to go. And if it's on June 22nd in the auditorium, we'll be ready. If it's sometime in July on the field in front of the high school, we'll be ready. We don't know what yet, but Scott and I will be in close touch, and I'm sure we'll be back to you in the very, very near future.
Frollo bleachers.
That's another option, was the Frollo bleachers. Some towns are using, No problem. I don't want to get into the whole discussion
No,
tonight.
just-
Portfolio is parking and ADA.
Yeah.
Now, Katie,
high
that has
school.
actually been discussed. So the Memorial
Yeah,
Field
okay.
bleachers has been one of the things that has been thrown out as a possible option. So
And of course, outdoor is always a risk that weather conditions might
Mhm.
dictate whether you have the meeting or not. So there's a lot of different factors to
it's a
consider.
risk for weather. It's a lower risk for infection. At least
Right. Anything? Did I miss anything, Scott?
No, I think, for the most part, as we work out a plan, we also have plans for Sean and I to work with Kevin Tachi and to do everything we can to get the information out to people of what to expect at town meeting, what the, what the articles are going to be, or, what the budget's going to be, and, how it'll work, how we're going to process them through it. First and foremost, the idea is, as Sean said, it's to keep everybody safe. So if we don't feel as though, or if Marty doesn't feel as though we can do this, and it can't be pulled off, then we're not going to do it.
Right. And as Scott just said, thanks for reminding me, we are going to try to get on cable TV and kind of go over the warrant publicly, go over the budget, inform as many people about as much detail as we can. So again, when they walk into that meeting, we are ready to go, make some decisions, and then split up and go home. Again, by lowering the quorum, we're not saying that we want as few people there as possible. That's just our minimum to get started. So we're hoping people will get there early, check in, and be ready to rock and get going on town meeting. And all the other information from the cable TV show likely won't be put out until the week before town meeting, because as you know, we have to wait for the warrant to be finalized before we start reviewing it and pushing it out there. So thanks again.
Another point, Sean, that you had mentioned to me earlier was that there will not be committees meeting at the school before town meeting. So typically we as a committee meet an hour before town meeting, go over any last items that we might have to discuss, prepare for, but that will not be happening this year.
That's right. Typically, your committee, the selectmen, the planning board, the sewer department, the health are all in different classrooms before town meeting, having abbreviated meetings before town meeting. We are not going to have that happen, just so we can keep that school building basically as clean as possible and control where the crowd is going to be. And again, we'll give much more details about that on cable TV, and I'm sure through emails in the week leading up to the town meeting date. It'll be different.
That's for
We'll
sure.
get the job done. All righty.
Other questions for Sean? Comments? See a bunch of shaking heads. Sean, thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciate all the work that you're doing, putting in all the time that you're taking away from yourself. You thanked us for our volunteering. You're volunteering as well. Appreciate
Yes.
all that you're doing for the town to try and get this straightened out and done.
All right. Appreciate it. Good luck to you guys. Call me if you need me. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Will do. All right, moving on to the budget. So Scott, welcome aboard and welcome to the fire. Sue and Scott, where do we stand with budget? We have, so just to give a quick recap for anyone who's joining, listening, or watching, we got several weeks ago to the point where we had a balanced budget that would, under normal circumstances, have ended our budget process. We got to the point where we were ready, and then the whole world started to blow up. And the economy is not what it was when we got to that point, so we're just trying to do due diligence to prepare as best we can as a town for what we expect to be a different economic picture than what we were looking at through the months of putting this budget together. So, Sue, Scott, how are we doing?
Well,
Scott, how are you doing getting up to speed on where we were at?
Yeah, well, yeah, I've had no choice but to get up to speed real quick, and thanks to Sue, I've been able to. So we did get word, and I'm not sure if you and I have talked since then, but we did get word from, the state that don't expect the numbers that were in the governor's budget. And I think we already all knew that. There was still no indication on what to expect. So we looked at kind of where we were at and what our projections were. And we felt it would be best to go back and relook at those numbers and take another 10% off of them. So that left us making up about, was this 1.2 million roughly?
Correct.
So we started looking at what we had estimated. We met with the department heads. We asked everybody to really sharpen their pencils and give up what they could. Obviously, we're going to put in a hiring freeze for anything that isn't absolutely required or needed, and a spending freeze. So we were able to come up, and I don't know, Sue, if you've done any more since we talked earlier, but we were able to get pretty close to that number. We're about 100,000 off, Sue?
We were about 160 at the end of the day today when I left. I have since, and pretty much all the departments had given me their bottom line number. I have since talked to the fire chief and the DPW director, and we are now at a $30,000 difference. We need to come up with a cut of $30,000 within what we have. And like, we know that we're kicking the can down the road on a couple of items, but people will go to town meeting to vote for those things, to take out of stabilization. But I think that $30,000 might be something else that we can, cut out of the estimated trash and recycling, because that is a number that we don't have a solid budget for. So.
Yeah, so some of the savings that I thought we could do immediately and that we had talked about was what our estimated numbers were for trash and our estimated numbers for health insurance. So the thought was that, we would go forward with our capital projects that were coming out of free cash. We'll bring them to town meeting. Hopefully they'll be approved. Most of them are needed projects. But we're going to put a hold on all of them. And if monies come down from the state or from the federal government that, support our revenue estimates and things are good, then that's great. We can go forward with the projects. If not, then those projects will come back to another town meeting, which will either be in the fall or it'll be a special late this year. And we may end up having to transfer those projects either back, take that money, put it back into stabilization, or stabilization and backfill trash or recycling, or trash or health or something later in the year also.
Yeah, so we were at a 1.2 million and we kind of worked things out, and the school took about a $450,000 cut too, but that's going to be a funding cliff a couple years down the road because they're using one-time revenues to sort of make up for giving up with they're giving up some of their needed expenditures by using one-time revenues. So at some point, we're going to be catching up with that in a couple years down the road.
Yeah, all the departments have been really good, and they've all come up with, they've worked hard with us, and they've given up where they can.
Yeah.
Sue, can you explain that, the school thing that you just mentioned?
So the school kind of, they're getting one-time revenues for the CARES Act, and they're getting, they're going to be using some circuit breaker money, and then she's saving money on contracts by giving them a little bit now because they need to pay for their insurances and their excise taxes and stuff so that they can keep their buses running when we need them to go. But next year, they're trying to level fund those kind of contracts, but it's going to catch up to us a couple years from now where they're going to be like, okay, we consented this year because of what happened this, last year. So now 2 years down the road, they're going to say, we bent for you, you guys need to bend for us. So it's eventually going to catch up to us. And the CARES Act is just a federal funding for this opiate thing. I mean, sorry, not opiate, Sorry,
COVID.
pandemic, COVID, and
Different crisis.
right? So it's all a crisis, so it seems to me. So where they're getting their money from to cut their budget right now is one-time funding. So when we go back to normal, they're gonna have to catch up with what they're cutting now, plus what they're gonna need in the future. And that's pretty much the fire department, the police department, anybody who's cutting their budgets right now, they're cutting and they're gonna have to catch up at some point, just like we did back in 2008 and 2009. And it took some time to catch up.
So there's no things that we can cut that won't necessarily mean we have to catch up on it?
We were at bare minimums already, you know.
Yep.
With you know, funding contracts, funding, you know, keeping our personnel, and the expenditures, they've always been at the bare minimums. You know, we turn back in about $275,000 a year town-wide, which is not a lot of money when we have a $56 million budget.
Yeah.
You said you found 10% cut. You used to have a $56 million budget. I would have thought 10% is 5.6 million.
We actually cut 10% of state revenue because they gave us, Senator Keenan sent us a letter that said, don't count on Chapter 70 and don't count on unrestricted governmental aid to be going forward. So we cut 10% off those items. So our tax revenue is still the same. It's always going to be the 2.5 plus new growth. So that doesn't change. And we haven't changed our local receipts as of yet either. But if things keep going in the direction that they're going in, you might see you're not going to get the meals tax that you've normally gotten. You're not going to get building permits. You might not get motor vehicle excise. You know, so those things we haven't even touched yet. So if this keeps going in that direction, we might find that we might even need to take further cuts. But as of right now, we're just going on what Senator Keaton sent us.
How much does
Like I said, I would expect next year's budget cycle to be harder and probably worse than this one.
Greg, what were you going to ask?
how much does the house excise tax give us?
Property tax.
Property tax is 38,709,000.
I would definitely take 10% off that number.
Well, it's a guaranteed number regardless of whether people pay it or not, because you can lien it. So when it goes to lien, you eventually get that money, so they allow you to keep that number the way it is.
But is it a year in advance?
It's actually, that number is for fiscal year 21.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, so maybe 2022, we might have to do an adjustment because prices will go down.
I don't know.
So
10%.
prices. So just a quick update on that. Prices will, depending on
Market value
and how that changes throughout this, prices will likely go down. The assessed value of the house doesn't go down until the house is reassessed. So the property tax amount doesn't change as quickly as the house value changes.
It's usually a year and a half behind.
Okay.
So we'll definitely see if the housing prices go down and the assessed values go down, we'll definitely see a hit in that number, but it takes a while to get to sort of work its way to the town budget. Sue or Scott, was there any word from either Senator Keenan or Representative Sullivan or the state in general on the Student Opportunity Act?
Nothing was mentioned in any of the messages I got now.
Okay.
Well, Felicia did mention yesterday that they're going to get the money, but they're not going to get it this year. So it's a definite that the money's still coming their way, but how fast it's going to flow into the school systems right now with the state of the economy, she doesn't think that they're going to get it this year.
This year
being 2021.
Yeah, fiscal year 21.
So there are no new positions in the budget anymore?
So I think, and Sue or Scott, correct me if I'm wrong on this, what we looked at before was keeping the new positions in the budget, but not hiring them until we know we have the money to support hiring them. Did that change?
Yeah, that had to change. We had to take the planner position out. And the position was it a civilian
Civilian court officer.
court
Yes.
officer? Yeah. So that
And then-
position's gone.
And then the school department was gonna hire people. They still need to hire 3 people for certain Student Opportunities Act with the, what they're required to do. But unfortunately, they're not gonna fill positions that are going away through attrition so that they can get the positions in there for IEP programs.
Okay.
IEP meaning individual education programs for students with needs.
Other questions?
Are we still filling the stabilization fund like we were in the last budget we saw?
What was that again, Chris? Sorry.
The last budget we saw was putting money into the stabilization fund. Are we still doing that?
Correct. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. So the money going into the stabilization fund is technically not in the budget itself. That's through what we're doing for closing out fiscal year 20 with the free cash, the certified free cash from this year.
But we were also putting some other money in there too, like the
There was
money from the
there was
housing parking lot.
yeah, there was money from a previously not expended town meeting article that
And
was going to go into that.
and from the excess money that's in the building revolving fund.
So yes, that's all sort of before we get to the fiscal year 21 budget that we're doing that. But Scott or Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, but the plan is still to put as much money as we can into that stabilization account, knowing that whether it's to make ends meet with the fiscal year 21 budget or 22, that's likely going to be needed at some point soon.
Correct. That is still the plan.
Sorry, I'm just taking notes for a second, trying to make sure I've got everything down. Does anyone have further questions on where we're at with the budget, what Scott and Sue have been working on? Looking around, I see a lot of long feet. All right. So we will continue on with that. Sue and Scott, thank you so much for all the work that you're putting in there. Looking at now the special and annual town meeting warrant articles. So as we just got an update from Sean Riley on where we're at with town meeting, we know that the warrant will not look exactly like what it looks like that we've already gone through and that you guys have copies of. The question that I have for you guys is, do we want to wait for a more finalized warrant, or do we want to go through either now, next week, and go through and work on our recommendations for each of the articles, knowing that what we have in front of us is the maximum number of articles that will actually be on the warrant.
Well, I think with the exception of taking the non-monetary articles out of there, everything is going to go forward. Scott, I don't mean to overstep, but it seems to me like that's what the consensus was the other day. So you probably can start taking your motions and your recommendations on the monetary stuff. From what I can see, nothing's going to change. As Scott and I have spoke, that we're still going to go forward with the capital items, and if they are approved at town meeting, we are going to request from the department heads to hold off on spending on those items until we are more stable with the state of the economy, before they can actually expend out of those items.
So I would guess that the special town meeting warrant is probably going to stay pretty much as
Correct.
is.
The only thing I would have to add to that would be any end of the year transfers that are above and beyond what you guys can transfer after May 1st. And actually, there is no limitation anymore on that. So if you guys want me to take that out of there completely, we can just do finance committee, town manager, end of the year transfers without even having to bring it to town meeting. That's, again, that's something you and Scott can discuss, whether we don't even want that one, but the rest of it, stabilization, snow and ice, and let me see, I'm trying to pull it up right now. It's not coming up.
Let me see. Sick leave buyback for retiring assistant librarian. Snow and ice removal, and stabilization, and budget transfers.
Yeah, so even the sick leave buyback, if we can find the money from another department to transfer that. So you're looking at snow and ice and stabilization that are necessary to put on the special town meeting. Other than that, we can do that internally.
So I think based on what we've done in the past and what we've seen already, the sick leave buyback we can leave on there.
Okay.
That's a fairly simple, straightforward, easy one to handle. I think we pretty much know where we're going with that.
Right.
What are people's thoughts on budget transfers? Do we want to leave that on warrant? And we typically do have a warrant article with budget transfers, but then we also typically have some left over
that linger at the end, yes.
that we handle ourselves at the end of the year with Sue.
That's correct.
So we kind of do both most years.
Yeah, so we don't necessarily, before the Municipal Modernization Act, it had to go to town meeting if it was over a certain amount. There's no threshold anymore, so you can do it without going to town meeting. So it could come off, as a matter of fact, it might be easier to just do it all in one swoop with you guys and the town manager approving it and not having it go to town meeting. It's just a matter of moving money from one budget to another. And right now, I don't foresee any major expenditures that need to be covered. I just spoke with my auditors today, and we were spending COVID stuff within the selectmen's budget, and they asked me to put it in a separate fund altogether. So it's not part of the general fund because it's not something that was budgeted for. And then we can see where we get with FEMA reimbursements and stuff like that. So we might have to cover that a couple years from now with a town meeting vote if there's a deficit in that account. So they just basically said, take it out of the general fund and put it into its own fund altogether. So it's not part of showing as part of any deficit in our general fund. So
what are people's feelings on that? Do you feel comfortable with us handling the budget transfers, the year-end budget transfers outside of town meeting? Do you feel like we should put it at town meeting? I saw some nods for us handling them. I didn't see much response either way, though.
Listen, the less time we have to spend in that auditorium, the better for everyone.
Agreed.
I agree.
Yes, I agree that Sean
Okay.
seemed to want to do everything we could to get it under a half hour, so.
And isn't it just a formality?
It's just a formality, yes.
Yes. All right, so let's handle the budget transfers ourselves and take that off of the warrant.
Okay.
I would ask about that. There's one where you're taking that $100,000 grant that you had gotten that you didn't use because you got some other grant or something for the senior roof. And part of it you were putting in stabilization, part of it you were using to pave the lot. I wonder if we shouldn't just put it all into stabilization and only use the money they had to fix the doors and things. They had 48,000 of their own.
We could always put it into stabilization if we don't go forward with the project.
Yeah.
So I think it would be best to hold off on that and go forward with it. And then if, like I said, we won't do the project right away, we're not going to do a lot of things right away that we're going to. We're not going to buy the cars. We're not going to buy the, anything that we can avoid doing that is coming out of free cash. I think we're going to hold off on. And like I said, if the climate isn't much better, or it doesn't look like things are getting better, we have that ability to transfer that into free cash or whatever else we think is necessary at a town meeting.
Okay, all right.
And just so you're aware, with the door portion at the senior center, when we finished the roof and we closed it up and made it more secure and there's no air coming in the wrong way, and we put the turbine things on the top, she has found that the doors do need to be replaced because the drafts are now coming through the doors instead of in through the ceiling. So just
But they have 40,000 of their own to fix the doors. So
correct.
Yeah.
The programming company pay for the doors.
yeah.
And that's obviously not like we could hire a person for the, same cost of having that repaved. Right? Like roughly 50 grand. I'm just kind of throwing out a specific round number.
Would you like to do that? But yeah.
I mean, I'd just rather hire a person that's probably going to need a job at some particular point in the near future than repave something, my opinion.
I think the point is that it could certainly save a job.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand they want to get it redone. I mean, I get it. I just, if things aren't, don't really get much better, I don't know.
Yeah, and Greg, as we've discussed, we don't want to. We would prefer not to hire anyone right now that we have the potential to, a year from now, need to be laying off.
Yeah. I just mean in general, 50 grand.
In general, yes, we would rather put 50 grand into saving someone's position than
That's all I mean.
paving a parking lot.
Right.
It's going to happen, so.
Yep. All right, so let's quickly run through the special town meeting warrant articles, the first three that we think we're keeping on there. So the first one is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $7,011.20 for sick leave buyback for retiring assistant librarian or take any action relative thereto. Do we have a recommendation on this?
Can you read that again? I'm sorry.
So this is so basically you just want to run through the three articles that right now that we're keeping on here to make motions for our recommendations.
Right. Did you email these out? I'm sorry.
Yes. We did. Hang on, I can get that emailed to you again very quickly. Hang on.
Yeah.
Katie, you want that to the South Shore Health
Yeah,
email
that's good.
address?
Thank you. Yeah.
Hang on 1 second.
Okay.
1 second.
Sorry, reading along will into my brain better.
All right, I just emailed those to you.
Perfect. Thank
Should
you.
get them in a minute. And I should have asked if anybody else needed them emailed again.
What was the attachment name?
What was that?
What was the attachment name?
The attachments are, hang on, FY 2020 STM warrant April 15, 2020.docx, and same thing, but ATM instead of STM.
Okay.
And Matt sent those out on April 15th, in case you're going through your emails. That's where I found it. Just now, again.
Oh my God, April 15th?
I'm good.
Right.
I don't think my emails go back that far.
All right, so let me know when you're ready to roll. Got a thumbs up from Katie.
Yep.
I know Russ has them. Chris is good. Joe and Greg, you guys good? Joe's good. Ready to roll, Greg?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So looking for what our recommendations are and making motions towards our recommendations for each of these three articles on the special town meeting. So the first one is $7,011.20 for sick leave buyback for a retiring assistant librarian.
And what's the correct terminology for recommendations?
So it would be a motion to recommend or a motion to pass over.
All right. Motion to recommend.
Second.
So hang on, I have to take the notes properly on this because we gotta make sure these are recorded properly. All right, so we have a motion to recommend. Is there any discussion on the motion? Without any, all those in favor of recommending Article 1 for the special town meeting warrant? All those opposed? All those abstaining? It is recommended and unanimously. Article number 2 is to see if the town will vote to transfer from certified free cash the sum of $162,460 to cover the FY 2020 snow and ice deficit. Sue, I just want to make sure, since we had snow over the weekend in early May, that this number has not changed at all.
It hasn't changed as of what I've seen. I haven't had any invoices come through my office, so I could not tell you for sure.
Glad to hear that. I know it snowed, but it didn't really stick, which is a small blessing.
Can I ask a question about that? The snow fund is one of those funds that we don't have to pay in full every year. That's one of the debts that we can carry. Do we have to pay that full amount given our financial situation, or can we change that number? Or is it better just to pay that off to start with a clean slate next year, given the financial situation that everybody will be in carrying over from this pandemic?
Scott, you got that, or you want me to get it?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not a debt, it's deficit spending. It's spending money that wasn't appropriated. So the difference being, yeah, we should pay that. out of our free cash. That's the whole reason, because there's no way of predicting what that number should be. So therefore, yeah, we do have to pay it, and we have to pay it now.
I mean, Katie, if you don't pay it now, it actually goes on the taxpayers in the fall. It'll end up on your tax bill.
That's fine. That's what I thought, but that's always one of the confusing points every year for town meeting. So, and for us with the budget. So I just wanted clarity.
Yep, good question, Katie.
Thank you. So I guess I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion to recommend and a second. Any discussion? Or any further discussion, since we've already had some discussion? Without any further discussion, all those in favor of recommending Article number 2? All those opposed? All those abstaining? It is recommended. All right, Article
All right,
number 3.
before you start,
Oh, yes.
so to move from free cash into stabilization, if you could reduce that number by $95.50, because the treasurer collector's drive-through window does not work, and that is a quote that she got. Like they can't talk back and forth, and you know, it's just, it doesn't, it's not working properly. So she got a quote for $95.50, which I got from her after you guys got your warrant. So the $95.50 is added to the capital and subtracted from the stabilization number there. And
So
I don't.
$95.50.
$99,550.
Wait, for what?
The drive-through window that we have in the treasurer collector's office.
We have a drive-through window in an office?
We do, to pay taxes
At Town Hall.
at
You're
town
telling
hall.
me I can drive through town hall?
You can
Yes.
drive through like a Dunkin' Donuts and pay your bill. If it's raining outside and you don't want to get out of your car, actually,
do I-
mostly elderly use it. You know, it's convenient. They pay their water, sewer, excise tax, real estate tax, property tax, and the drive-through window does not work.
Did we obtain 3 quotes?
Yes, we did.
I would. So is this a new thing?
No,
Nope.
it's been in the building since the building was built.
No, I'm saying that it doesn't work.
Well, it hasn't worked since I've been there. You can open the drawer and get your money in, but you can't talk to the person that's on the outside because the microphone system doesn't work.
I would, yeah.
So if, again, that's just something that the treasurer wants to fix in her office, but it's whether you guys want a motion to approve it or not. It's just, I just wanted to let you know that was something that I got after the fact of what you got on April 12th. 15th.
Where is that reflected in these articles?
I'm sorry.
Where is that reflected in? Is it in one of these articles?
It's going to end up, so when
Will
you
that
go back
end up
to
in the
this,
capital plan
yeah, when you
on
go
the
back to the
annual town
annual
meeting?
town meeting, it's going to be added to the capital, which is not on what you have right now.
Okay.
All right, so essentially the number that we have printed in Article 3 was $1,116,838. You're talking about dropping that by
$9,550.
$9,550.
Unless you want to think
However,
ahead of time that you don't want to approve it, then your number is going to stay the same.
so the question that I had was, in previous meetings, since we got these documents with these numbers, we talked to the schools about the painting of the Frollo, which they said does not need to go forward this year, which could add 70,000 to 70,000 to stabilization taken out of capital. The other thing that we had talked about was for the repairs for the Central Street Bridge, but I don't believe that was a capital or free cash item. I think that was borrow, so that would not affect this number, correct?
That is correct. Then you also have deputy fire chief's vehicle that if you don't want to approve, that could also go into your stabilization. That's on the ATM.
Yep. So I think for the moment we would add the 70,000 because the discussion with the school was that that would not be done this year. We had not circled back with the fire department about the deputy's vehicle. So I think for the moment, at least, we leave that where it is. Right?
I think last time I was talking, remember, I think somebody was checking, or I don't remember exactly, but like they just got a new truck last year. I said if he needs this person, if they need that, if that person could use that new truck. I don't know what the answer to that is, but
Yeah, I think the recommendation was to talk to the chief now to see what his input was on that, because it's the fire's truck, and I don't think anyone did that.
All right, so we can have that as a takeaway from this for our fire liaison to talk with Chief Nuttall about that. Joe, was that you that was fire?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, could you follow up with the chief about that?
Mhm.
Thanks. So for the moment, I think we're taking away 9,550, but adding in 70,000, which amounts to a difference of $60,450. I did major in there.
what was that 70 grand we were putting back in?
Painting of the Frollo.
So Greg, if you net the school painting of Furlio and minus out the drive-through window, you're looking at putting 60,450 more into stabilization than what you're seeing in front of you.
So it's just one of those things that we talked about in the beginning that like we don't specifically have to do in January or whatever, whenever the fiscal thing happens.
We don't specifically have to do that in fiscal year 21.
Yeah, so
The painting of the Frollo. So we're moving that money off of the capital item and into stabilization.
I just think my best thing that I could possibly say is unless things are like desperately needed, it has to happen. There is no question about it. I just don't think we should do it this year. And we could always do it next year. I mean, what the hell's the difference? I mean, again, I know that it might not look, the paint might not look that good or whatever it is, but I mean, I don't know. For me,
I
that's
agree
just,
with Greg. When we're trying to look to cut things back, it doesn't seem very fiscally responsible to throw another big expense on. And it just seems like this coupled with the alarm system, and I forget what the other thing was that we had to transfer over cash, that, it's just becoming a time that bad planning is becoming an emergency. And we're transferring over money that we don't have for things that could essentially be planned for a little bit better.
So I think the question for the drive-through window is, does the window itself works, but the
voice system doesn't. So
the voice
Matt,
system doesn't, and the
my-
voice system hasn't for how long?
As long as I've been there.
Okay,
So
so
maybe
can I just give a really good analogy really fast?
wait, no. So maybe you want to jump into going to look at the capital and what you want to approve on the capital before we approve Article 3. So you
before
know
we
what
approve
exactly.
the number.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a
Article
good
3.
idea.
Okay.
So right now, let's put a pin in Article 3 on the special and move to the annual. And Greg, what's your really good
I
quick
feel bad
analogy?
even saying it, but like, I mean, I'm trying not to be like, do we need a drive-through window? Like, so my analogy was I had a car that had TVs and massage seats in the rear, and I just didn't need it. It was a really cool feature, but it wasn't needed. I don't know. I'm trying to Google this and find out what other places have drive-through windows. We're not a bank. We're not a Dunkin' Donuts. I get that it might be somewhat convenient, but there's the mail. The mail works perfectly fine. And we also have a town hall that you can get up and go to and put something in a Dropbox.
I'm glad I stepped up for a minute, but if I can interrupt, can I just ask, has anybody thought about the fact, I mean, we're actually encouraging people not to come inside of town hall.
Right.
Right.
I think
That
that's,
was what I was going to mention.
I'm
was-
perfectly fine with it, but let's get a Dropbox.
we have one.
That's what I'm saying. So if we have one, I would go with the low-tech thing at this particular point until things are a little bit more situated. That's what I would do.
well,
The
and
window's working, correct?
It opens and closes. So yes, you can take payments.
And it's been broken for how long? You said as long as you've been there, Sue? How many
As
years is
long as
that?
I know it hasn't worked properly.
And how
I've
many
been
years
there-
is that?
I've been there since 2012.
so,
So 8 years.
Yeah.
so to me, that does not present an immediate need.
Correct. Like, again, it was a request of the department head, and that's why it's there.
I understand.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm all for pandemic safety. I haven't left my house in 2.5 weeks. I'm enjoying agoraphobic life. So I definitely think that it's important, but it's just hard to approve a $10,000 expense in a time that we're trying to be a little fiscally responsible.
I saw Katie at the movies like 3 days ago.
So you say that, Greg, but I happened yesterday to be looking at the box office numbers for the entire country, and I believe there are a total of 19 movie theaters open in the country.
Oh, gosh.
Don't think any of them are around here.
That's that Oklahoma stuff.
Couldn't tell you where they are specifically. But I could tell you that the last weekend in April's box office was down $400 million from a year ago.
Wow.
Those actors are doing all right.
The sale of Werther's originals are gone too.
Oh,
Are they?
Greg
Yeah.
is seriously
game
Greg is seriously lamenting that one. So, moving forward to the annual town meeting articles. First article is the budget, which we are not done with, so we will pass. We will skip that for now. We will not pass over. We'll just skip the budget for now. Article number 2, transferring from certified free cash for the purpose of funding in special education needs for fiscal year 2021. Sue, do you want to remind the committee
Sure.
what the
So-
details of this one? I know it was worked out between you and Rick and the schools.
Right. So the school department feels that with the school closures, when kids do come back to school, they might see an increase in special education IEP needs. And rather than putting it in their budget and not needing it, putting it in a warrant article, and if they need it, they have it. And if they don't need it, they can give it back. So, you know, with their Zoom programs and things that they're doing, they're hoping that what they're doing for the kids that do have IEPs is enough. And if it's not, they'd like to have something to fall back on if they need to bring in extra paraprofessionals or, you know, teachers that can assist these students in catching back up to where they normally should be for their needs. And I don't know, Felicia and I were talking about the wording a little bit on that, about how it should be worded so it can be specific to, but we don't want to also pinpoint any specific group, you know. So basically, it's for IEP needs for kids who might be lacking over the last 6 months of not having school.
I would leave it open pretty broad though, right?
Yes.
Could that have a negative effect, Sue?
No, because I trust the school department that they're going to use it for what they need it for, only if they need it for it. You know, they're not going to.
I just know in my business, if I leave something really big, it always doesn't work out. But
Yeah,
in this
no.
kid, this might be different. So
No, Peter and Felicia are, you know, they're really on the up and up, and we can word it differently if you guys would like us to be more specific. We just don't want to be discriminatory either.
Yeah. Got it.
Are we recommending these or just saying, yeah, leave it there?
Same thing as with the special, looking for motions for
So make a motion to
recommendation or
approve.
pass. So there's a motion to approve.
One second.
Any further discussion on this one? So this one, just for a little bit more of the detail, if you recall from when the school department was in, Felicia and Peter were talking about how they typically know by October what the special education needs are, but people that move into town that have children with special education needs, anywhere between when we pass the budget and October, could send that number up, and that was part of what they were looking at with this. If they move in after October, it goes to the special education payments come from the town that they moved from. But anything up until October, they go onto our books. So this was trying to find a creative way to set aside some money that may end up being needed, but not have it sort of encumbering the budget.
It's a little bit above and beyond that, Matt. It's more like, I have a child with special needs, and if he's out of school now, but
Yep.
With him being out of school for 6 months and not having the services, and we can only do so much with special needs kids, that when they go back to school, what are they missing? They're reading and their math, and so it's more for the students that we have right now. That's what that's for. If
this period of social distance learning is difficult for any student, it is much more difficult for students with special needs.
Correct. You put that well.
Further discussion on this? Without any further discussion, all those in favor of recommending Article number 2? Those opposed? Abstaining. It is recommended. Article number 3 is the capital plan. All right, so let's move quickly through. So first item on the capital plan is 2 police cruisers. We did talk with Scott mentioning that they want to leave this on the capital plan, but not actually purchase the cruisers until we know we're actually going to be able to afford the cruisers. Anyone have a concern with the 2 police cruisers? That looks like a no. Deputy Fire Chief's car, Joe is going to
talk about that. I think we talked about that last week, Matt. Again, just if we could do maybe one this, again, I don't know, but if we could do one this year, and then, because obviously there's a thing where it goes like 2, 2, 3, or what, I don't know.
Yep, we do 2, 2, 3, like 2 one year,
so maybe
2
it's like,
year, and 3.
Maybe it's like 2, well, I forget what year we're in, but it sounds like a 2 year. If we could maybe do 1, and then next year, instead of it being another 2, be a 3. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, we're definitely not going to be in a better position next year.
Yeah.
We certainly could be in a worse position next year, but we won't be in a better position. So I know you guys talked with Dave about this. I obviously didn't have as much time. My thought would be I'd rather see you go with it, and maybe at some point we only let them buy 1. Like I said, if things, again, we don't intend to let anybody buy anything out of most of, any of these free cash articles.
Yeah.
Won't get done unless, we anticipate that, or we know for a fact that we're in a healthy place with the budget. But, and then at that point, yeah, maybe it is just, hey, you know what, Chief, best we can do is 1, and that's it. I hear your concern, and I understand that. I'm just, like I said, my concern would be if this is a 2-year, next year's a 3-year, and now it becomes a 4-year, but we're telling them you can only do 2. The following year is even worse.
Sure.
So like I said, everybody has shown a willingness to work pretty hard with us on the reductions that we have asked for and needed. So I would say take a leap of faith on this one with all of us that, if by chance we don't have to do that, or, we can get to one car, if things are really bad, then that's all we'll do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my,
I mean, I'm good with that.
okay. So Deputy Fire Chief's car, Joe is going to follow up with Chief Nuttall. Replacement trash and recycle carts, $30,000.
You can probably cut that down to 15.
Okay.
The squirrels in my backyard will be happy if I don't get one. Because the holes, they can get in and get all the latest dinners.
Nice.
Town hall and library fire alarms. I believe that one is a safety concern.
That is not so much a safety concern as much as it is the fire suppression system is obsolete. So if it fails, we cannot get parts for it. So it's working as of right now, but 6 months from now, if either one of those suppression systems go down, we're going to need to find the money for it.
So better to prepare for it than to be
Correct.
looking at a reserve fund transfer or something of that nature.
Correct.
And the other thing, Sue, obviously you know way more than me. Does this sound like it is a repetitious thing that whatever we buy, it becomes obsolete? Like,
well, you have to understand that the building is like 22 years old.
No, I know.
And nothing's been replaced in it since then, So the fire suppression system is, when I say obsolete, it works, but if something doesn't work, we can't get the parts for it. Same thing with the lift at the school, the handicap lift at the Furlio. They haven't replaced it yet. They have the money. They haven't replaced it yet because it hasn't broke, but if it breaks, they wouldn't have the parts. So they're sitting on the money to be able to replace it if it breaks, Our HVAC system, all this stuff is the same stuff because these things have a 20-year life and we're beyond the 20-year life on these things.
And I completely understand that. My only point is, for a lot of this stuff, I think that, again, if we can, and I've spoken to you about this before, about just the mindset, right? And I'm not saying your mindset, but the mindset itself. All of this stuff can be fixed. It's maybe the parts are a little obsolete. Like, again, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but just look at Cuba. None of their cars have any parts that were ever supposed to be on there, but they work and they run because people fix them. All of these things can be done. Maybe we have rules and regulations. Again, I don't know. I'm not the rule and regulation guy. I think everybody knows. But if there's a way, I think a lot of times people look at something and say, hey, this is obsolete, it's old. I just don't know. I don't hear about that much in other phases of my life that, like, I know of. Again, I don't know anything about sprinklers, but other stuff that I've heard this about. And I'm not saying it's you saying it. I just hear it, and I don't hear it anywhere else, really. You know what I mean? Like,
I guess if we had a building maintenance facilities or something, somebody that's in charge of the buildings that would know this stuff. We're basically taking the information from the vendors that are telling us this stuff because we don't have somebody on staff that can say, no, this guy's not telling you the right thing. I can get parts for this. I'm basically running a building, and the library's running a building, and Suzanne's running a building. We're running a building based on, hey, we need to have the yearly maintenance done on this, or we need to have the yearly checks on this, and sign off that it's working properly. And we're trusting our vendors to tell us that it's running properly. We don't have building maintenance to tell us whether or not these things are actually fact. So I guess when we're saying this is obsolete or that's obsolete, it's because we're hearing it from the vendors.
Yeah. No, if I was a vendor, to be honest with you, Sue, I'd be telling you it was obsolete too, truly.
Although the vendor that told us it was the highest bidder, so we wouldn't be going with him anyway. So and the other vendors that did come in, I did get 3 quotes, and they did agree that the system is, that you cannot get parts for this system. You can monkey parts for the system, but you can't get parts for the
Yeah,
system.
I got it. You know I like to monkey.
I know you do.
That is something we are all familiar with, Greg. So what is the sense from the group on the fire alarms and the fire suppression system?
Is it one of those things too where we can keep it in there and delay as long as we need to? Because it sounds like you don't, if something goes wrong, you don't want to not have the money available.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I mean, I guess from that standpoint, I would say keep it.
Right. Nothing says we have to do it right away. If it's not broken, don't fix it. But at least have something there in case something happens.
Sue, would this
And so
fall
Greg, just to kind of put it in terms of something that we dealt with when we had the reserve fund transfer come before us for the security system for town hall, one of the questions that I believe you had asked was, if this had been going down this path for a while, why didn't we budget for it, and why didn't we put it in? So I think that's what we're trying to do now with the fire suppression system.
Sure.
It's just
No,
the timing, just
literally,
the timing of it.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely should budget for it. I'm not. I know. I wish I had some experience in this, but I know somebody who owns a company that installs all the sprinklers in a building. But and I can always ask them for help if we needed it. But I don't know anything about it.
You can send them my way and be more than happy to have them look at the system and tell us that, it's fine the way it is.
Yeah, I'll see if I can do it right now.
Yeah. Can I move to recommend that we accept this?
So I think we're just right now we're going one by one. We don't need the motion, but I think from what I'm seeing from nods and things around the group is that Joe's suggestion that this one stay in and not be spent unless we need to spend it is kind of the overall consensus.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
All right. Next item was MS4 permitting, which is a statutory requirement. We have to leave that one in there.
What is the funding source on that one? I didn't see it in that column.
What was that?
What is
Joe?
the funding source for that?
Funding source on that one is free cash. The next is the DPW waste oil furnace. I'm trying to remember what John Stone told us about that when he was in, because we definitely talked with him about that.
Definitely doesn't work.
I vaguely remember that it actually saves money.
Yeah, that sounds right. So I think
waste oil, yes.
I think this one stays. Anyone have a disagreement there? Okay. Painting the Furlio, we already discussed, is coming out. And that is it for our free cash. The other items on the capital plan are items that are coming out of either the water reserve fund, the sewer reserve retained earnings fund, or the golf retained earnings fund.
Now, can you just refresh my memory what decided on the fire chief's car, the deputy fire chief's car that's in?
We haven't made the decision on that yet. Joe is going to follow up with Chief Nuttall
Got it.
to talk to him on that one and get a further recommendation. So we'll hold off on an official recommendation on the capital plan until at least next week when we have more information on that. Similarly, we'll hold off on special town meeting, but as of right now, with the numbers that we are at, oh wait, so actually let me go back. The drive-through microphone system, which is not on our paper, but would be coming out of free cash if we use that. That would go under the town hall and library section where the upgrade fire alarms would be. Sue, I assume the source was free cash.
Correct.
Thoughts on that one? I know we've discussed it quite a bit already.
I mean, I agree that it should have been on the list before, but I think in light of trying to keep everybody safe from a health perspective, I mean, if that can help keep more people, out of town hall while we get through this, perhaps it's not a bad idea. I mean, compared to more expensive things on the list. I mean, it's under 10,000. It's not that pricey.
So I think the question I have, and I know people who have used the drive-through. I have not personally used the drive-through. I think my wife actually has used the drive-through. We can use the drive-through without the microphone system because it's currently being used without the microphone system. So I think that keeping people out of the building and distancing during this time is still a capability of the current setup. And the setup, like Sue said, has been this way for at least the last 8 years.
So it's acting like a drive-up drop box.
Correct.
Essentially.
Yeah, I imagine that probably makes it somewhat difficult for someone who has questions to pull up there. I don't. It just seems to me if you have it and it's broken and we want people to use it, it should function properly.
Yeah, I mean, I got to agree. I'd say if there was no COVID-19, then we'd say put it in the budget. But I think we should, put it in another budget. But I think we should. It just seems like something that should be fixed in light of what's going on. And that's my opinion.
So Russ, you're saying fixed now?
Well, yeah.
Or in this capital plan?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure that I had what you were saying.
Yeah. Thank you.
My only question will be, what have we done in the last 8 years in answering people's questions as they pull up?
You kind of have to put your face down by the drive-up window, like that slides out, and kind of do this and say, "What are you saying? And can I help you?" They can't hear you unless you actually open the drawer and talk through the drawer.
What if I get one of those big funnels like this? It goes down like this. Hello. It would be super easy, super cheap. I won't even.
Megaphone.
Can we
Get a Sue, you just fixed it. Get a megaphone.
That'll be less than 10,000.
That's what I mean. Like, I don't know.
I think it's 2 megaphones, one for inside and
one for out. Yep, there you go.
But then there's going to have to be a town employee that's going to have to stand outside and disinfect the megaphone every time someone. Is that going to be you, Greg?
No, I don't know.
No. That sounded like Greg volunteering to me.
Yeah, that's it.
I think you did. I second that.
You can take time off from work, right, Greg? You laid 50,000 people off, right?
Sit there and hold a megaphone. That would be amazing. I know it sounds crazy, but like you could get somewhat creative. I don't know.
All right, so I'm trying to gauge the group, and it looks like we've got Russ for and Greg against. Where does everyone else stand?
Should we arm wrestle?
Chris, what are you thinking?
My first thought was to not include it, but even though it has been working for 8 years, it feels like now there's a good reason to get it to work because we have this special circumstances going on, and it would make it easier to work with. So, and if it was, and where it's $10,000, doesn't feel like it's a make or break thing, but the benefit for those that do use it would be, especially now with our current situation, would be beneficial. So I guess long-winded. I'm siding with Russ that we should include it.
Katie.
Sorry, technical difficulties.
That's okay.
What's the volume? Like, how many people pay bills, and what's the percentage of people that use the drive-through window?
I can't really
What's
say.
the percentage of people that pay online? What's the percentage of people that that mail a check in the mail, and what's the percentage of people that use that window?
I can't really say, but I sit at my desk and they go by my window, and I would have to say there's a good percentage of people during tax time, when excise taxes are due and real estate bills, there are quite a few cars that sit outside my window waiting to get to their window on those times.
And why are we asking questions at the window about the bill and not
Well,
in
sometimes
person?
they have questions, like they'll come up and, is this what I owe? Or if they have their sewer and water bill, they might say, can I pay this on one check? And, and I don't know exactly all the questions that happen there, but there is communication going back and forth between the treasurer's office and the customer that's in their vehicle. I'm not in that office, so I can't answer everything that has to do with it. But again, like I said, it was a request of the treasurer collector.
Chris, thoughts? I'll let Katie mull on that for a minute and then come back to
While she's
I'm
muddling
kind of
on.
with Russ.
Okay.
In that it's, now that we've got the COVID-19 situation, seems like everyone's building ways, even the golf course now, you pay through a window instead of going inside. And so many of these things we're putting in and not doing unless we really have to. It seems like we ought to put it in and then decide, we can decide if we got the money to do it.
COVID-19 contactless interactions should encourage online or mail paying.
Yes.
It's still not contactless. Now you're creating a need to have it sterilized. Are you going to have access to the Lysol or the Easy Kill wipes to wipe it down? What's going to be the process to hand off pens? What are you going to have it sprayed weekly for intense cleaning? Is it going to be able to be, taking it apart? You're at risk for touching just the same as if you're touching your mail. Like, it's still not creating a true contactless interaction. It's giving you that barrier, but it's not. If you want a true contactless interaction with the public, that's mailing your check, that's paying online. If people have questions, they should be using the phone, or there's now a wall at town hall, correct? Is there the sneeze guards up in that's just as much contactless with a window underneath it as it is people sitting in their car.
I yield to the experts. So it almost sounds like we should be shutting it down.
So
I just think it's convenient for people, Scott, I'm sorry, you were talking, but I just think it's convenient for people that might not be able to have access to, again, I don't want to sound discriminatory, but handicap, or people who are the elderly who can't, get into the building as easily as somebody else.
Oh no, I agree that my dad he loves the interaction. He goes to the water department, he pays his bill there, the sewer department, and so on. He's one of those people that goes up to every single office to pay his bill because that's what he does. But and I do think that it's an important resource to have. But if you're looking to encourage that contactless interaction, fixing a microphone so they can ask questions, then they're talking into it. You're still having that contamination as you would if you're in the office and you're having that sneeze guard. People should be encouraged for contactless interaction to call and to put things in the mail.
And I'm sure they are being encouraged, but to say that every transaction must be contactless seems like a high bar to cross. So
The argument that other people are making is to have a contactless, that a microphone is needed to create a contactless interaction. A contactless interaction still can occur using that window, and it still can occur in other ways. Fixing the microphone is not going to create a contactless interaction.
So that's not the reason to do it. But
that wasn't the goal of fixing the microphone.
So, question, sort of slightly aside from that. Sue, if we do if this is included in the capital plan, it would not be something that could even potentially be acted on until after July 1st, correct?
It doesn't need to be acted on until Scott says act on it.
Well,
It's like everything else.
but if
We
it
couldn't
is
do it
passed, the
before.
earliest that it could be acted upon would be July 1st.
Correct.
It would
Do
probably,
we have any kind of idea of if it were being acted on starting on July 1st, what the timetable would be for it to actually be fixed? Because if this was something like that we're talking about, like the people who are saying we should include it because of the circumstances we're in right now, if it's something that we're not looking at like being done as a project until September, October, then
Yeah,
it kind of,
it's not being done as a COVID measure. It's being done for the convenience of the taxpayers.
correct. But I think, and Russ, Joe, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but on your side, the impact that it would have during the COVID time is important to your argument for it.
Well, I guess I definitely, that's a good point. I did forget that the timing of this, so aspects of this are going to be happening for a couple of years. But that being said, if we want to separate out, this from COVID, it almost sounds like we should put it in the FY23 budget if we're going to look at it under that lens, I guess, because if it's not going to be able to be fixed until August or September at the earliest, then, not to waffle, and I'm certainly not an expert on the contactless versus otherwise transaction thing.
Yeah, my position wasn't to create contactless, it's just to increase the convenience of those that are trying to find ways to do their transactions.
With
It-
minimal interaction.
Have
Yeah,
we brought someone in
it's
8
different in the
years?
same
Do
time, but
you know if
not-
anybody's brought in the, like, just try to fix it too? Do
I'm sorry.
you know if in your time there, has anybody been brought in to fix it, like an electrician?
No, not that I'm aware of. This is the first time I've heard of it, that this year that the treasure collector wanted to repair the window.
Is there any way that we could maybe just like have her specifically ask? So what is wrong with the window? It's just the microphone doesn't
I
work?
don't know that it's just a microphone. Obviously, it can't be just a microphone for $10,000.
Yeah.
But
That's what I mean. So can you just ask what it is, and then if
I
it
can.
is something that like maybe we could look at getting fixed for a couple bucks, a couple grand, whatever it is, this might be a much easier thing than we're all mulling over.
Okay, I can do that.
helpful to ask Sonia to chime in next week.
That would be
Yeah.
great.
Why don't we just get it right from her? I don't anticipate that you would mind if you could put her on your agenda relatively early and let her jump on and jump off. She
That's
can
awesome.
answer a lot of your questions better than us.
That would be great.
And Matt, I just texted the fire chief.
Yep.
And he said that the current vehicle that they're using is a 2006 with 123,000 miles on it. So he would like it to stay on your capital plan if at all possible.
Yeah, I think the question Greg was bringing up is that they just bought a pickup truck, and can that be double utilized for what the deputy chief needs and what the original intent of the pickup truck was?
That I don't know.
That was we already talked to him. You can put the question by him, but that was my takeaway for following up with him.
Okay.
Okay. So we will get follow-up on the drive-through window for next week. We'll get follow-up on the fire department truck for next week. We've gone through the other free cash items. We've currently taken away $85,000, 15 from the trash carts and 70 from the Frollio painting. The other items, water department coming from the reserve fund, sewer from retained earnings, golf from retained earnings. Does anyone have any questions there? See a lot of heads shaking. I think we'll move on. So that ends Article 3. And I need to flip to my next page in my notes. Hang on one second.
So do you want to go back to
I was
Article
going to say,
3?
having done that, I think next week we'll have to go back with the additional follow-up. But as it stands right now on Article 3 for the special town meeting.
1201 838.
$1.201838 as Chris beat me to. So sitting at 1.2 million going into stabilization. All right, so that takes us to annual town meeting Article 4, which is the sewer main replacement borrowing article. Any discussion there? We have had a lot of discussion in past meetings about this one.
So on the borrowing items, you know, that I'm assuming the year-to-year impact is small, right, relative to
So
the.
the impact on the overall budget is negligible. It does impact the so do those impact the levy, the town, the tax rate?
No, they're not debt exclusion, but they will impact your FY22 budget because we'll borrow them in 21 and your first payment will become due in 22 and it will
Yep.
become part of your budget, not your debt exclusion.
Yep.
So
Okay.
it'll reduce your available funds for your other services. With those dollar amounts, I don't see it as being a whole lot of money because we also do have stuff that's dropping off this year and next year. So we'll probably end up leveling it off. Then obviously the sewer main that would go directly to the sewer department.
Yep.
I mean, it feels like one you have to keep on there, right?
Yeah.
Any more problems with that force main, we're gonna have a lot more problems than what they want to spend.
Yeah.
Right, we've had two major problems with it already in like a less than a 2-month time period.
At significant cost to the sewer department.
I would motion to approve.
Motion to recommend from Joe. Was that Greg with a second?
Russ.
Russ, thanks.
Stop trying to take that credit, Russ.
I'm just faster than you, Greg.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of recommendation? All those opposed? Abstaining? Okay, article number 5, to borrow for a camera for the school. I'm trying to go back into my notes to exactly what this one was.
It's for the Beaverbrook in the center, is it Center School?
That's right.
They don't-
Yes. No, it was Beaverbrook and
Woodsdale.
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 Yeah, so
Beaverbrook and Woodsdale.
they don't have any security systems there other than a buzzer to let somebody in the front door, and the main office can let people in, but they'd like to have security system throughout the building, for, you know, safety of the students. And because they don't have anything existing, they're not replacing what they have to go through the complete wiring and everything else that goes along with it.
I just, it should be fixed because on the one I have, it says Woodsdale and Frollo, but,
Yeah, the version of it that I have doesn't specify.
oh, okay.
I did reach out to Peter Schaefer, and on several of these articles, the borrowing articles, I did ask for a little bit more information on them. You know, so we're going to end up, you know, certainly if you don't want to vote it, but we are going to end up with, you know, 2 or 3 lines of a little, you know, more information on
I think that would be helpful.
That's fine. I
pretty much all of those articles.
Yeah.
Yep.
Motion to accept or recommend, whatever.
So motion from Chris.
Second.
Second.
I'm going to give that one to Katie because I think Russ has all of the other seconds so far. Further discussion? We lost Greg. Greg got fed up with us.
Those borrowing articles, they're just placeholders. We still haven't gotten the actual
The exact figures.
wording from bond counsel.
Yep. All right. There's Greg coming back. So Greg, we have a motion to recommend and a second. Any further discussion on the cameras, the security systems?
And Scott said they were coming back with more information.
They were going to get
I mean, I think it's a good thing to have
the explanation beefed up a little bit so
Yeah.
that the write-up for the article is better, essentially.
Yeah, got it. And I would just comment one thing if Scott, I know it's your first day, but the more information we get, the less questions we can ask, right? Like there are so many questions that I ask that Sue doesn't know. How would she know them? But like people, when they're telling her this stuff, like these people need to be giving you guys this information, because just handing something that just says, hey, we need this, it's just tough for anybody to look at that, right? So if you just look at your own finances again, and I don't know, it's just tough. So thank you guys for doing that on your own. And if we could continue to keep doing it, I think it would make everything a little bit more, smooth. So to vote on this, Matt?
So this was the discussion part. You ready for voting?
I got it.
All right, all those in favor of recommending Article 5? All those opposed? Abstaining? It is approved, recommended. Article number 6 is borrowing for the siding for the police station. We've had a lot of discussion about the siding for the police station. It seems annoying but necessary. Annoying that it's no longer under warranty and that we don't have any avenue for redress there, but fairly important to do. Any other comments there? Any motion?
Again, I would just say we've heard about this for a little while. Has somebody sent us a picture of like what I was just there, and no, I didn't get arrested, but I was just there, and I don't know. Like I don't even know what anybody's talking about.
If you drive up to the police station and you
Yep.
go to the right-hand side of the building where the deputy chief and the police chief park their vehicles.
Yeah.
You look at so there's a little extension that goes out. The siding is definitely, it's just coming apart. So the pieces that they put together, I think they're high-powered whatever you call it,
The gun.
guns. Yeah, there you go. They had the pressure too high, so it broke the board. So over time, there was cracks in there, and then over time, the cracks became bigger, and you can actually see that the siding is falling off the building.
Yeah.
So you look at the building, go to the right, and pull up where the police chief and deputy chief park, and that side of the building, it's very obvious. So I haven't seen any other sides of the building. I didn't walk around it, but I did notice that.
And are they just repairing that one side, or are they doing
No, we're going to replace the whole siding because obviously it was all.
If we do this, I think it's one of those things that, like, if we could maybe just buy a product that, even though, like, you know, like vinyl siding can't get messed up really unless they, you know, you really, really, really screw it up.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like cement board, all those things, you can crack that stuff. Vinyl siding has basically been put on houses for the last however long. And again, I don't know what they're going to do. The other thing I would say, if we want to get creative, I have it on my house. My front and my sides is different. My sides are cedar shingles. My front is vinyl siding. You could always do that if one of the end caps is. It actually looks good, especially down here in the South Shore. I don't know how creative people really want to get. I don't really even, like I said, I was there. I didn't see it, but I also didn't look that close for every inch of it. But
So it is cement board, and I don't know what that estimate consists of. I don't know what the product is that they're looking at.
how much was it?
They estimate about 150,000.
Holy Jesus!
I thought it was 100. The number we had was 120.
120. That's for the whole building, though.
So I would say along the lines of what Greg said, if there's any way that they can, so if the rest of the building is appropriately covered with siding that will not go bad in the same way that this did, if we can look at doing just the one side, if not, then obviously we need to look at doing the whole building with something that's going to last for a very long time. Further discussion there? Motion. So one of the things, Greg, just on that is when we allot these amounts, the amount is up to that amount.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
do have to spend the whole amount.
No, I understand.
Just making sure.
I mean, I even know friends that might be able to help with doing something like this. That, I mean, I don't know. I know it's a decent sized building, but $100 grand is a lot of cake to put on stuff on the outside of the house. And again, I'm sure it needs to be a specific code. I'm sure I don't know any of that stuff. Again, I've never had to deal with it, but I don't know. Maybe, can we get a little more information on it?
You know, look, I haven't actually looked into this at all.
Yeah.
I was told it had to be done, but I'd be happy between now and next time you meet to.
But I'll even go there. I was looking. I was actually with my chief. He was filling up his truck, and I was looking at but I wasn't what Sue's saying. I wasn't over there.
Right.
So
You were on the DPW side, right?
yeah, yep, yeah. Basically, where the basketball court starts, or wherever that corner of it right there. And
So
so
opposite
obviously, I
side
didn't
of it.
go over there.
So Scott, if you could get more information for next week, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that. So we will wait on that one. Number 7 is, this is one we have gotten a lot of information on. It's to borrow for 3 fire apparatus repairs, $160,000. And we've gotten pictures, we've gotten estimates. We definitely have a lot of details on this one. Does anyone have questions, discussions, or motions on Article 7? We got Joe going through the Blair Witch Project over here.
My devices are dying.
Heading to the power cord.
This
Yeah.
was this was that discussion I think we had last week of, do you put the money into really like fixing this stuff, knowing that we are going to have to buy a new one in 3 to 5 years. I read a bunch of articles after the meeting. They all basically lean the same way. So I'm going to let you guys discuss it, but
Craig, are you saying, and I'm just to understand this because I have no idea about this stuff. You're saying that what you read perhaps said that maybe just we should just be prepared to purchase new fire trucks soon and save this money?
yeah, basically like the 150 grand. So basically when you have an old piece of equipment, the 150 grand is going to go to fix all the things that are wrong, right? But that older machine is going to most likely keep breaking down. You're then going to have to continuously keep maintaining that older vehicle. And then there's going to be more things that break. And, you know, the 150 is then going to be another 50 next year. Again, I'm 100% making up this number. But there's a lot of articles that you can look and you can just read about this stuff. And it doesn't really recommend doing that kind of thing unless you say, look, I'm good with knowing that we're not going to not maintain it, but we're not going to spend a certain amount of money. So 150 plus another 50 plus another 50, you know, that's 250 grand. And a new apparatus could be, I know it's like 700 grand, but we're going to have to do it anyway. And that's the whole point of it. In 3 to 5 years, you're going to have to do it anyway. So you just try to limp the things along, I guess, is basically what most of the articles were saying, to be honest.
I might be incorrect in speaking, so Scott can also check with Chief Nuttall tomorrow, but it sounded more like it was cosmetic repairs, not mechanical repairs.
Yeah,
So
some of them were
from what I recall from when we went over this with the chief, some of it was cosmetic repairs, some of it was things like the step that they use to go up. That's a safety issue, but it's not like a framework of the machine kind of an issue, or a mechanics of the engine or the pumps or that kind of stuff. It's the mechanics of the machines themselves, for the most part, were sound. These were things to try to, one, keep them safe, and two, make sure that we're able to use them for the longest time that we possibly can, so that we stretch out between years of purchasing new fire engines.
And, you know, from my notes of watching that meeting, a large priority of that was actually 2 engines that needed work, one being that spare and one being the 2002 model that he was going to put some work in. So it's not, you know, what you're getting for this money is he's actually looking, I think, fixing 3 engines.
Yes, it was 3 machines.
Yeah, so there was 3 of them that will be overhauled at that, and it looked like 2 of them was getting the bulk of the money, maybe up to 110,000 into 2 of them. So I know what you're saying as far as, yeah, you're throwing money, but you're not throwing money after 1 vehicle at this price. You're actually doing, you know, 3 of them.
Yeah, and
3 of them
and
as opposed
kind of to Greg's point, I think if we were looking at the 2002 engine, putting $160,000 into that one, and saying, hey, this is going to get us another 3 years and then we're going to be replacing that engine, I would definitely be a lot more skeptical of that than I am of what the plan was for this. On the other side, Greg, I'm going to go back to the discussion of the drive-through, where your suggestion was we do what we can to fix it instead of buying a new thing.
Yeah.
And find ways to monkey around with them to get them fixed, which I think is what we're looking at here.
There's an argument for every side of the table, Matt.
And I can throw yours back at you very easily.
Exactly. No, I like that. My only point is, if we have to do that, every 1 to 2 years. It,
No, I
again,
totally,
if you read this
totally
article,
agree
it
with that.
basically says like you're basically just throwing money, just chasing it. The same thing when you get a car at a specific point. Like, is it really worth like, you know,
Yeah.
redoing the engine? Is it really worth redoing the transmission, or is it just say, hey, you know what? Next time it blows, we shelf that one and put up a capital plan to get a new one, and you know,
100% agree. I had a couple of cars back that I reached the point with repairs where I was just throwing money out the window.
Yeah.
And I had to turn it over and get a new car instead of continuing to repair it. From what the chief had said, this money is not hey, we put this money in and 2 years from now he's going to be looking for some more money. He was saying 5 years.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, no. Listen, I already know which way I'm going, which you probably don't know. But
So then do we have a motion?
who has a motion? Oh, yeah, sure. We'll do a motion. To approve?
Yeah, motion to approve or recommend.
Recommend.
So motion to recommend. Is there a second?
Second.
One second. Just getting them. All those in favor of recommending Article 7? All those opposed? Abstaining? Greg, just to make sure which side were you on?
I was on a yes.
You were a yes. All right.
Trying to push off that $700,000 thing from coming up.
I agree. I want those. We've had a couple of them, and while I've been on the committee over the last 7 years, I'd like to go several years before we have another one. So, all right. Article 8, Central Street Bridge rehab. When we had the DPW chief in a couple weeks back to go over this one after all of the COVID stuff started to hit, his recommendation was to pass over this for the time being, based on the current economic environment. Does anyone have any comments, questions, motions?
You broke up, Matt. Say it again.
Oh, does anyone have any?
No. What was the thing?
Sorry, it's the repairs for the Central Street Bridge.
Oh.
When we had the DPW chief in a few weeks back, his recommendation, given the economic climate, was to pass over this for now and do it later because it is not a has to be done this year thing.
This is the one with the pictures?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any comments?
Motion to pass
Questions?
over.
Motion to pass over from Chris. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Joe. All those in favor of passing over Article 8? All those opposed? Abstaining? It's passed over by us at least. All right. Let's see how many of these we can burn through quickly now. Article 9 is $5,000 for collecting fees for public records to provide supplies for such requests. I believe this was a article to try to help out the treasurer with collections.
No.
No? Sue, what was this one?
So it's to add to our revolving articles. So a lot of the departments, they provide public records requests, like the building department, planning department are the huge ones. So they buy flash drives and, they print out maps and things that the public is requesting that the public pays them for, but then it goes into a miscellaneous revenue account. So they're taking it out of their department to pay for these things, but then the money that's coming in doesn't go back into their department. So if you create this revolving account, it's sort of, you pay for it, we buy it, you get it. without affecting their everyday services.
And is it just a $5,000 revolving fund?
Yes, and
Okay.
and it's for the whole town, so you know, it's not department specific, and the town clerk's going to have oversight of it because most public records requests go through her office. So they'll have to, when they get the revenues, they turn the revenues over to town clerk's office. Then town clerk's office turns it over to treasurer's offices, and then when they have the expenses, it's also going through the town clerk's office. So there's only one department that's handling all the public records request expenses and revenues.
Okay. And for those who are listening at home who are unfamiliar, a revolving account is just an account that the town sets up where money comes into the account from specific fees and goes out to where to pay for the things that are covered by those fees. It's just essentially just a pass through for the payments, and the $5,000 does not mean there's $5,000 in the account at all times. It means that the account can have up to $5,000 in it. Does anyone have any comments, questions, motions for number 9?
Motion to approve or recommend.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions, discussion on any? All those in favor of approving or recommending? All those opposed? Abstaining? It's unanimous.
Hey, Matt, not that I want to go back to the police, deciding on the police, okay? But you're
I think
talking
you do
about,
want to go back to it.
but I'm not saying I want you guys to go back and take a different vote or say that you don't want to talk to the police chief or anything. But $120,000 on a $6.5 million building is not a lot of money to save a building.
That is certainly true.
Okay, that's all I have to say.
Yep. Nope, that's certainly true. Article 10, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer funds of $9,000 to fund and implement the cost of items included in the wage classification study or take any other action relative thereto. So
We're going to
this one,
pass over on that one, right, Matt?
what was that, Scott?
We're going to pass over on that one.
I don't recall.
I don't think we're ready to implement that. I think it's going to take a little more research. From what I've seen of the plan, it may or may not be flawed.
Okay.
What was that one again? Again, sorry, I don't know why my thing's breaking up. Which one was that again?
Number 10, the implementation of the wage classification study.
Maybe we can stop doing these studies or no? No? we gotta just keep doing them, right?
Yep, that's the way it goes.
I gotta open up my own study company, man. That is awesome.
Do you need a motion to pass over, Matt?
We do, yes.
All right, I'll make it.
Ah.
Second.
Although, any other discussion? All those in favor of passing over Article 10? Those opposed, abstaining, vote to pass over. Article 11. Raise and appropriate $14,000 for student transportation to Abington students taking out of district vocational schools. Anyone have questions on this one? This is an every year article that we have. We discussed it with the school department when we had them in.
Motion to recommend.
Motion to recommend from Chris. Is there a second? Russ. Further discussion? Without any, all those in favor of recommending Article 11? Opposed? Abstaining?
That was
Right.
a good yes. Sorry, I was reading something.
I thought so. Article 12, community preservation. This is their budget that we went over with them. We don't really have much of a say on this one, as we have discussed several times over. Is there any discussion on Article 12? Are there any motions on Article 12?
Motion to recommend.
Is there a second?
Second.
Trying as hard as humanly possible not to make this the longest meeting in the world.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Community preservation thing was what were they doing again? Sorry.
So it's listed. It's listed in there, but it's
All their own funds, right? They don't want anything from the town.
yes.
Yeah,
Yep,
it's all funds that they
it's all the
raised. So.
funds.
Yeah, this is the one that they were. Yeah.
So Beaverbrook Playground, Griffin's Dairy, Woodsdale School Playground, Durson Field, a handful of other things. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to recommend Article 12? Opposed? Abstaining? It's recommended. Article 13 is provide the sum of $10,000 for equipment purchase for Griffin's Dairy. This is one that we went into a decent amount of detail and got some information via email from the Griffin's Dairy Committee. Does anyone have any discussions, questions, motions?
Was that the one that they were looking for a lawnmower and wood chipper?
Yes.
A motion to approve. I recommend.
Is there a second?
Second.
Greg, you got anything on this one? Anything new on this one?
He's on Lowell's.com right now.
Again, just
This was Greg's John Deere conversation.
yeah, probably not the best time to buy this stuff. That's my only thought for this, right? Who takes care of this? Griffin's Dairy, right? It's all
Yep.
volunteers. So like,
Correct.
right? So like, I get that. I don't know, we can't work something out with the whatever to mow it and chip it. You know what I mean?
And care for the grounds that we have because they don't have enough staff. They're not going to be able to take care of Griffin.
Or sorry, I shouldn't have just said that. The lawnmower, I think, again, would be possible. The chipper, I see absolutely no reason for the chipper. They can rent one at Shaughnessy right up the road from the town hall for the times that they actually. Those are the things. Again, I've used their chipper 3 times. I could have bought a chipper. You know, I don't know how much they also have either. I'm not, but with a $10,000 budget, you're not really buying too much of a good lawnmower and a chipper. Chippers are very expensive, so I don't know. Maybe they just need a really small chipper. I don't really understand it. So I would truly say no on this, only because maybe they want to come back to us with a better idea or understanding that maybe they just need a lawnmower. Having a chipper is just such a very specific implement. It's really, unless you are doing that constantly, I don't see the reason to spend good. And again, maybe the chipper's $100. I don't know. It just doesn't break it out in here. But if it's $5,000 for a chipper and $5,000 for a lawnmower, I don't know. Shaughnessy will give you one for $200.
Any further discussion?
And he probably needs the business because he's an Abington guy, and you know things have been hurting. So that's what I would do.
There's no discussion for me here on this meeting, but Scott, you and I might need to talk about the implications of that.
Oh, Griffins, yeah, I really don't know
A
anything.
committee, a committee having equipment and where it's going to be stored and.
That's what I mean. Like there are.
Yeah, that is another very good question for this as to where their equipment is stored. I remember there was mention of there being a shed on the property, but
So they're looking to purchase some equipment. I'm taking it because it's some sort of historic property, the dairy
It's
property.
open space and they want to maintain it themselves.
Can they go to CPC and ask for money?
Sorry?
Historic preservation? Can they ask for CPC money under historic preservation?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
I believe there has been CPC money for the outdoor space that's been spent at Griffin's Dairy. But I don't think the historic preservation specifically on the CPC side of things.
And they may not. I don't
One of
know.
the committee members volunteering gets hurt using the equipment. They
So-
member their finger or, I don't know, end up in the chipper.
I mean, chippers are for real kind of a thing.
One
I
that
don't know,
supervisor
injure their
knows
left
that.
foot. But I don't know. They're injuries that are real.
Yeah, there are definitely legitimate questions surrounding this one.
Right, so do you take the $10,000 and you add it into a seasonal employee that can take care of the property, you know, from May to September, instead of buying equipment that, again, we have a liability on and who's using it and where's it getting stored and, you know,
Who's going to maintain it?
thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
Gas, oil, whatever's needed. And I think they're a great committee and they've done a great thing and it's a beautiful piece of land in town and we definitely should support
Agreed.
them in any way we can to have it conserved. But
That's why I was saying I'm good with a lawnmower, but a chipper again is just so specific that same thing of a forklift. Like I don't know, unless you're doing something constantly. I know people that own their own tree places. They don't have chippers. That's literally what they cut down every day. And they bring them to a place that does have a chipper. You know what I mean? Like, so there's ways of getting around all of it. I think, again, a lawnmower, if they want to keep the thing nice, I completely get that one. Maybe a little bit more information might be a little helpful on this one.
What
Sorry
did
to keep kicking stuff down the road.
what did they do in the past for mowing the lawn?
It's also a good question.
They hired somebody, I don't know if it was yearly or every 2 years or something, to cut down the overgrowth. The parts of the Griffin's Dairy that they use the most, the community gardens and things like that, were maintained by them, but it's slowly been becoming something that they're using more. But we did, I know at least 2 times since I've been there, have a company come in and cut down the overgrowth.
And I'll even say, if they cut down the stuff, I would literally rent it, that chipper, and bring it over to them and help them. So again, I think there's a little bit more creative way that you can do some of that stuff. Mowing the lawn, I get it. That's definitely something they would probably need to do more. But the chipper thing, that I don't know. That's why I'm saying maybe if we can get a little bit more information, it might be a little helpful. Maybe they don't specifically need the chipper. I don't know. We pass this one over and just go maybe next time.
So we have a motion to recommend. Based on the discussion, do we want to retract that motion in favor of getting more information for next week?
yes.
You had to say, what do you think, Greg?
Well, I said that because I wanted to know what you thought, because I had my own reservations about this one, but I wanted to give voice to the rest of the committee.
I just feel bad for everybody's ears.
No, I mean, after hearing Greg's position, I think it's important to get more information. So I would gladly retract.
Chris?
Yes, okay.
Okay. So we have retracted. And we will get more information for next week. Sue and Scott, is that information that you guys could gather?
Yeah, I'd like to meet the committee.
Yeah, we don't specifically have a liaison to that committee, so has not come up in the past. So
Matt, is there a chance for me to take a quick bio break?
I actually think that this is a good place for us to break, and we'll pick up
A
the rest,
motion to adjourn?
pick up the rest of the articles for next week. We don't have to go through all of them tonight. I think we got through more than I actually expected to tonight. Before we get to Katie's motion to adjourn, I'm going to put a pin in that very briefly to go to the other portions of our warrant, not warrant, our agenda. Do we have any liaison reports?
Not on my end.
Okay, we do not have minutes to review. We do not have correspondence. Our next meeting will be next Wednesday, May 20th, my daughter's 20th birthday. Do we have, and I will now go back to Katie's motion. Do we have a second for Katie's motion?
Second.
To adjourn? And there's the second from Joe. Hang on 1 second. I just need to take this for the official notes. All those in favor of adjourning? We are adjourned. Thank you very much. We will see you next week, Wednesday, May 20th at 7 o'clock, once again on Zoom.